Welcome back to Haven't Read It. We're going to read some malicious compliance stories today. The first story of the day is, just send me the invoice, so I sent it 14 times. A client kept forgetting to pay, so they'd ask me to resend the invoice every week. After the 5th time, I set a reminder to email it daily until they paid. They finally called, yelling, "Why are you spamming me?" I just said, "Just following your instructions." Update. So a lot of you guys are asking what happened next. After I sent the invoice 14 times, the client finally called me, voice absolutely dripping with indignation, and said, "Why are you spamming me?" I calmly replied, "Oh, I thought you needed it resent, just making sure you've got it this time." There was a pause. The kind of pause where you can hear someone's soul leave their body for a second. Then they mumbled something about getting the check sorted and hung up. The best part? They paid that same day. All 14 invoices were marked as read in my email tracker within an hour. Moral of the story, sometimes the squeaky wheel doesn't just get the grease, it gets paid. Top comment, the best way to get forgotten invoices paid I've ever seen was a very early web hosting company in the 90s. If the customer didn't pay on time, their website would get redirected to an error page saying, "Site unavailable because company name doesn't pay bills on time." Someone responded to this. Place I used to work handled the hosting for a nearby university's law school. Absolute shit client, and I was the AP person tasked with chasing down their late invoices. We eventually had to, after 3 warnings in a 1-week span, that we would take down the law school's website during enrollment. They cut the 4 months past due $250 check for hosting that afternoon. Like, how the fucking hard is it to just pay your goddamn bills? Client was on the owner's alma mater, so he let him get away with way too much shit. LP responds to that comment too. That's the nuclear option, and I respect it. Nothing says pay up like public shame on a 90s error page. These days, though, I think QR codes on invoices are my equivalent. Easier to scan, harder to ignore. Someone else responds, Ferengi rule of acquisition number 9. Opportunity plus instinct equals profit. OP says, funny you mentioned that. My instinct told me to follow up 14 times, and the opportunity was watching their guilt meter spike. Profit? They paid. Conclusion, Ferengi wisdom is oddly practical for invoice chasing. Someone asks, did they pay in gold-pressed latinum? OP says, sadly no latinum, just regular old currency. But if they had, I'd probably be building my next tool on a starship by now. Maybe next time I'll include a galactic credits accepted line on the invoice just to see what happens. Nerds. I'm going to read you a story from MaliciousCompliance. Ask me for 4 eggs, I give you 4 eggs, using the policy I explained to you 5 times while you were ordering. This is a doozy that happened to me at my old job, as a server at a breakfast place, where I fully acknowledge that there's no need for an AITA because I ATA and I know it. I was having a particularly overwhelming shift, and about 3 hours into a 6-hour shift, 2 people came in that were particularly known for their being divorced and completely loathing one another quite openly to the servers and staff, and were overall very loud and rude to guests and staff alike. Every other weekend they would come in to go over paperwork and divorce things, and the server who would get them always got sympathy for the rest of us. I had the pleasure of serving these 2 lovely people a few times, and all of the times were so insanely different in terms of weirdness. But let's just get into this one. They come in and it ends up being my turn in the rotation. Yikes, but I thought me and the guy were chill because the last time I served him, I told him I liked his dinosaur shirt, and his ex-wife made fun of him for it. And I told her I thought it was a cool shirt, and he and I high-fived, and it was the most invigorating experience of my life. I come up to them and ask what I can get started for their drinks, and I can tell it's going to be a tense experience already. They were very snappy and rude, and I was doing my best just to stay friendly. Fast forward, I'm asking for their orders eventually, and the guy orders 4 eggs. I explained to him, we double our yolks. If you order 4 eggs, you will receive 8 total eggs. He tells me no, he wants 4 eggs. So I tell him, okay, so that's going to show up as 2 eggs in our system and on your receipt. He tells me no, he wants 4 eggs. At this point, I don't know what to tell him, but I try one more time. I tell him, yes, you will receive 4 eggs on your plate, but I will say 2 on the receipt. He says, no, I don't want to pay for 2, I want to pay for 4. I'm done. At this point, I'm more confused than he is. I tell him, okay, and I write it down on my order sheet. I put in the order manually because we do not have a button for 4 eggs because we double our eggs. The head cook calls me over. He says, 4? I say, that's what the customer ordered. He says, okay, and he makes the most beautiful over easy sheet of 8 eggs with a side of bacon. It comes out and I serve it to him. He looks at me and says, this isn't what I ordered. I say, yes it is. And he says, fine, I'll take it. I got yelled at the end of my shift, but it was so worth the look on his face when I served it to him. And the last I got from my coworkers who told me they wished it was them to serve it to him. One of my favorite memories from working at that place. I have a picture of the 8 egg beauty, but I can't post it here. Sad face. Top comment. I understand that he wasn't listening to you, but why does the restaurant do that? Why not have 1 egg equal 1 egg? What if you only want 1 egg? Will you get at least 2? OP says, it caused many issues. It didn't make sense to me for months. I thought at first that we had double yolked eggs. Stupid to think they'd pay for that. Then I realized they matched the eggs. So when you ordered 1, you'd get 2. Order 2, you get 4. You couldn't order 1 egg. It was very frustrating for many people who specifically wanted 1 egg. Second top comment, is there a reason why the restaurant is trying to cause confusion by doubling the eggs? Someone responds, OP was like, we double our yolks, and I genuinely wondered if I was the only person who has never heard of this. Yeah, I've never heard of that either. It confuses me as well. Why would a restaurant do it? Just cut the price in half and don't confuse people anymore. Then you can say that your eggs are good and really cheap or something. Someone says maybe use the egg whites for something else that can only use egg whites so they have a lot of yolks. Looks like whoever came up with this menu is the ass. Imagine if I called to make reservations for 4 people. Then when I showed up, you seated us at a big ass long table. Oh man. Are you trying to say receipt? Yeah, whenever OP tried to write receipt, it said respite. Someone says he needs a respite from the receipt madness. This is a good r/boomers being fools story. Creepy boomer loses it when asked to tone it down. I own a vintage store, and there's this boomer, probably mid-60s, who comes in about once a month to look at the vinyl records. He rarely ever buys anything over $1, and he is always complaining about the prices that one of my vendors sells his records for. I've been tempted to ban him for the last 2 years because he won't leave people alone when they're trying to shop. If someone is in a booth that he's looking at, he'll torture them with his endless observations until they finally break free. This weekend was the final straw for me. There was a teenage girl browsing through the records when he came in. He immediately got in her personal space and told her that the records she was looking at were too expensive. He then started telling her about a new store that opened, in the next town, and how their prices are so much better. I was at the counter, which is pretty close to the records, and I said, I know you're not telling someone to go somewhere else right in front of me. Of course, he tried to backpedal, but he was still bothering the little girl. By this time, her mother came over to stand guard. They finally walked away and came to the counter to check out. I apologized to them, and the mother expressed her gratitude that I was watching him since he was clearly making her daughter uncomfortable. When he came to check out, I told him he was welcome to shop here, but he couldn't keep talking to other customers, especially not teenage girls. He lost it when I told him this. He kept whining that I couldn't tell him that he couldn't talk to other people. Finally, I told him that nobody came here to talk to him, and he was just bothering people. He wouldn't shut up, so I just told him he wasn't welcome here anymore. He left yelling that he was going to get the word out about how he was treated. I'm so concerned that he's going to spread the word that I don't allow creepy old men to perv on teenage girls in my store. Top comment, you handled it well. They want to act like a toddler having a tantrum. Treat them like it and give them a timeout. Someone says, did this the other day to my mother after she flipped shit on my wife for gently expressing her views on Elon's Nazi salute in a Facebook story. Had a friend look over the text and her words were, Jesus, she texts like she's having a stroke and you sound like you had to parent your own mother. What's wrong with her? Lead, years of drug abuse, the emotional maturity of a teenage girl, and a steady diet at Fox News. That's what's wrong with her. I'm going to get the word out. Dude did you a solid by warning off his friends. I mean, if he actually has any. Do you have a picture of him? You could post a sign by the register like a wanted poster saying he's banned for creeping on teenagers. Oh, that'd be good, man. Time to get that Polaroid wall up again. Hell yeah. Someone says, no joke, we need to name and shame these people. Last story for today, another malicious compliance story. Oh, you want all the forms? Sure, let me drown you in paperwork. So yeah, figured I'd share another of my malicious compliance stories, but this time it's about dealing with everyone's favorite place, the Gov office. Had to update my address on some official doc. NBD, right? I don't know what NBD means. Had my lease, utility bill, ID, copies all set. But nah, the lady at the counter, we'll call her Miss Forms, was determined to make me regret my life choices. I hand her my papers, she barely looks at them and goes, "Sir, you need to attach form 27B-X. Alright, where do I get that? You'll have to go to section D. Also, form 19A-Y is required." Cool, I hike over to section D, grab the forms, fill them out, get back. She gives me like 0.2 seconds of attention before hitting me with the classic, "You'll also need form 33-K notarized." At this point, I knew she was just making me do the paperwork Olympics for fun. So I flipped the script, went home, printed every single form on her site, seriously like 15 of them. Some had zero connection to my request, but hey, she wanted forms, right? Got everything notarized, attested, double stamped. Heck, I even got a signature from a guy who looked official just for the vibe. Next day I show up with a stack of papers thick enough to break a desk. Drop it in front of her, all polite. "Here you go, ma'am, every possible form you might need. Please check thoroughly." She blinks, flips through it, sees how deep the rabbit hole goes. Okay, this is more than needed. Yeah, no kidding. 5 minutes later, request approved, no further questions. Turns out following all the rules can be more painful for them than for you. Moral of the story: sometimes the only way to beat the system is to overcomply. Ever deal with this kind of government nonsense? Drop your stories below. Top comment says, "I don't believe this is real for a second." Even if it is, the only one you showed was yourself? Filling out all those extra forms for no reason? Great work. That's what I was thinking. But OP says, "I kid you not, there was some issue with one of my band accounts." One of my band account? They required an NOC from local police station. That guy was just trying to find reasons and saying something is missing all the time. I went through 400 pages of printout, 20 copies of each required and not required doc too. Used office printer for it, and trust me, all over his desk was only my paper. Yeah, someone says, "You started out with the lady at the counter, we'll call her Miss Forms, and now it's a guy." And his OP says, "Did I do some typos? It was a lady only." Yeah, this story sounds like nonsense. Sounds like ChatGPT, because his responses in the comments are all garbage. Can't spell, can't write. Alright. One more story, because that last one sounded fake. Boomers being fools again. Done a 6-stage interview to get into a role only to meet the most incompetent boomers on planet Earth. Some years ago, after 250 plus applications, I got an interview for a semi-technical payroll job. It was literally the most insane interview known to man. Cognitive tests, typing speed, personality assessments, and role plays. I eventually got a job and was paired with a 60-plus-year-old woman to show me the ropes. The things I seen in the first few days were absolutely maddening. Some highlights include: 1. Sending protected information via regular email, but typing "secure" in the subject line. I asked, "Why are you typing that?" And she told me it makes it secure. I quizzed it further by asking how, and she replied, "No idea. It's supposed to be secure, so I'm writing it." Okay. Number 2, another boomer was spending days every week working on 2 screens. You weren't allowed to interrupt her because her work was very important. I shadowed her and discovered what was taking her so long. She was manually typing data from one system into the other. I asked why she couldn't just copy and paste the data and she would know it was accurate. Because it's different systems. Nope, that doesn't matter. Copied and pasted it myself immediately. Number 3, one of them didn't understand how to make a new folder on a desktop. Number 4, they would spread malicious gossip about people that was completely made up, regularly, blatantly made up nonsense. Number 5, no windows were allowed to be opened in a boiling hot summer because of one of the boomers gets cold. Yet she has a blanket around her chair and refuses to wrap it around herself. Anyway, rant over. I could write more, but I'm infuriating myself. It amazes and angers me that only qualified people are working minimum wage jobs while these dinosaurs take up a seat, outright refusing to learn technology newer than 30 years ago. They also have this air of entitlement, as if we should automatically respect them despite them being quite horrible people. Let's see, top comments. Adding secure in the subject on many corporate mail systems will trigger the mail to be held, and the recipient is sent a secure link to retrieve the message and attachments. I work for a place that does this. The rest of it, though, yeah. OP says, "I am flabbergasted. I've worked here for like 3 years now, and not a single person has ever mentioned this, nor have I ever seen this link. But know what? I can admit I could be completely wrong about this. In that case, I'm the fool." And then OP later on says, "So I did it and sent an email to myself, and it did nothing. I got no link, just an email. Maybe it's because I sent it to myself though and not external. Yeah, or it could just not be set up in this system. Because I've worked at an IT job where you could do something like that in security email. Someone says, hoping I never have to teach another boomer how to copy and paste. Many years ago, I saw an older coworker using Excel and filling a column with the same data by typing it in repeatedly. I showed her how to use the control quote to ditto the column data. The next day I showed her how to use the control C, control V, then how to use the mouse to do stuff. Little steps in teaching, and she was so happy to be able to work faster and admit that no one had showed her this before. Someone responds, I regularly blow their minds with control Z. When I got this job, I was to replace a boomer. Actually, in an interview, I was told that she was being let go because the business had outgrown her and she hadn't kept up with technology, etc. By my first day, that had changed to she was going to phase out within a year or so and train me. 2 years later, she was still here, making my life absolute hell. I stuck around because the pay was great, and at the time, I couldn't find anything else. I once watched this woman email a web page. Seriously, she got confused and typed www. etc. into the send field of an email. Someone responds saying, ah yes, my old boss said that this is so frequent. I'm sure she wasn't actually my old boss, especially since you said the pay was great. Going through it now in a job search. I call it the gauntlet paradox. See a job posted and immediately apply. 130 people clicked apply. WTF. It's been open an hour. Get past the ATS screening. Take days of training to knowledgeably answer any skill gaps with, I can do that. Get an interview with a recruiter or HR who does understand the job. Get past them. Go 3 rounds with management. Hours of interview prep and practice. Finally accomplish the impossible and emerge victorious from a grueling run of the gauntlet. On the other side is a knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing, brain-dead drooling zombie who was assigned to onboard you because they were useless. You learn everything they can do in about an hour, then they return to their usual job of multitasking on the internet while half listening to an Outlook wall of daily meetings. You wonder, I went through hell. How did you even get here? Someone says, with a firm handshake 40 years ago. Thanks for listening. Thanks for commenting. I read them all. Comment below some of your stories. I'd love to read them in a video in the future. Tell us malicious compliance, boomers being fools, anything. See you in the next one.